Are we set?
You are set.
Okay. We'll call the Town Hall renovations regular meeting to order. Mr. Barron, would you please take the roll call?
Call, Councilor Bedrico,
Here.
Councilor Minor,
Here.
Mr. Claffey,
Here.
Mr. Mortensen,
Here.
Mr. Murtha, Mr. Woods,
Don,
Mr. Woods,
unmute.
How's that? Here.
Yeah, say here.
okay. Mr. Harpy,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll entertain an approval of a motion for approval of prior meeting minutes.
Make the motion.
A second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, can I get who made the motion in the second, please?
Don Woods made the motion.
Thank you.
Second, Rod Mortensen.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
It passes unanimously. Public participation. Anyone wishing to participate in public participation, kindly state your name and address. Do we have anybody in the queue, James?
We have Barbara who's on the line. I know she likes to usually just listen, but I'll unmute her just to confirm.
Okay.
Okay, it appears Barbara is using an old version of Zoom, it says, and it says in order to be able to allow her to speak, I need to promote her to a panelist.
James, this is Paul. I see that she has her hand raised.
Yeah, I without promoting her to a panelist, I can't allow her to talk. I'm going to promote her for right now, Mr.
Hey, go ahead. Barbara, are you there?
You should be unmuted now, Barbara. No, I have a feeling she's going to have a problem with that older
Okay.
Zoom.
All right, we'll move. Anyone else in the queue?
Nobody else at this time.
Okay, we'll move to project update. Downs. Frank from Downs. Frank? Are you there, Frank?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead, Frank, with your update.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Based on the last go-around of changes that we reviewed at the last committee meeting, our total changes to date is $832,326.88. That adjusts our GMP value to $28,593,315.88. Between the pending and approximate changes, the pending that we're going to present this evening and the approximate values that we're working on behind the scenes with subcontractors, those values combined is $53,547.71. That brings our total anticipated GMP value, if we were to draw a line in the sand today, to $28,646,863.59. Looking at the CM contingency, we started with $831,809. Based on the last batch of approved changes against the CM contingency, that totals $413,705.82. The changes that are in the pending queue that we're presenting total $73,612.76. That means with those values combined, approved and pending, leaves us with $344,490.42 within the CM contingency. Looking at the owner's contingency, from the reconciliation we did with the town back in January, we're showing a starting value of $868,405. Based on the last batch of approved changes out of owner's contingency, total $655,770. The pending changes that we're presenting for a vote this evening total $55,790.31. The approximate changes, again, that we're looking at with subcontractors, that's actually nets a credit amount of $2,242.60, leaving $159,087.29 in the owner's contingency. I don't have any soft costs to review. Just have this starting value here of $1,706,810. If you guys recall from the last committee meeting, we also presented a change that was funded out of CIP funds that totaled $176,556.88. That was to add the fiber loop, all phases of the fiber loop to the project. The project budget, combining everything here, totals $30,512,760. Does anybody have any questions on that before I jump into schedule?
Okay, Frank, go ahead.
Okay, so to give you the update, to give you a sort of a broad overview of completed work and what's in progress and a look ahead, looking out basically for the rest of June and what's on tap for us. We'll start with the completed work along Mazzicoli Way. We've set the binder course, we've set the asphalt curbing, and we are getting ready to final pave later this month. Within the bathrooms of the town hall, we have all of the toilet partitions completed, including the gang bathrooms that are adjacent to the gymnasium. We have finished porcelain tile completed and grouted on the second floor of the main lobby of the town hall. That's on the east side of the building. The vinyl plank flooring goes all the way around the corridors on the second floor. That installation is now complete. We have a rubber roofing system at each vestibule on the east and west entrance to the town hall. That roofing system is now complete. We've put in all of the registers, grills, and diffusers within ceiling grid. And ceiling tile is basically complete for the entire town hall space. Taking a look at the community center, we've got the rubber roofing complete. We had a little bit of metal trim left to do, I think, at the last committee meeting, and that work is now complete. We've set the coiling grills at the community center, similar to the town hall setup. We've got 3 coiling grills over there. We've completed that work. We've also completed the floor sealer at the food pantry area and the vault. Some other items to note here, we've also completed the final painting on the 3rd floor. The final painting on the 2nd floor is substantially complete. We just have some minor touch-ups to do at this point. Okay, taking a look at the work in progress, the exterior doors at the community center. This was the last piece to button up the building envelope. That work is now completed. The town hall vestibules, that work I'm going to say is substantially complete. We have some masonry to do on the outside of those vestibules. We've got some brick piers that we're constructing at this point. I mentioned the painting, really just down to touch-ups on the 1st floor and 2nd floor. We've installed some of the wall base already around the corridors in the town hall on the 2nd floor and within enclosed offices. We've swung a number of doors. All of the wood doors essentially on the 3rd floor are complete. We might be down to maybe 1 or 2 doors left to hang. The 2nd floor, we're substantially complete. And the 1st floor, we probably have a handful of doors to hang there. Really just down to about, I'm going to say about 20 doors left to hang in the community center. And we're just waiting to get a little bit further along with finishes there before we do that. The metal panel ceiling system at the Grand Hall, most of that's completed. It's more than halfway installed at this point. the chunk of the work or lion's share of the work that's left really for us is focused in the community center and gym, really the south side of the gym, or south side of the community center rather, which is the Parks and Rec kitchen space, the multi-purpose rooms, and the art room. We're in the midst of wrapping up the drywall soffits at the multi-purpose rooms. A little bit of taping there on the drywall left to do. The ceiling grid and millwork has moved right along on the west side of the community center. Most of the cabinets have been set within the transition academy and the daycare. The ceiling grid is in, light fixtures are in along that side of the community center. The startup on mechanical equipment is essentially complete. I noted substantially complete. We had 2 units left to start up at the community center, and I believe we were getting those started up either today or tomorrow. And same with the cooling system for each of the data rooms. We were gearing up to start the startup of those split system units within each data room starting today on the first floor. The dry chem system for the vault, so we got into this. We've started to run all of the wiring for that system, and the guys will continue with that until it's complete. Through the rest of the week to wrap that up. The gym flooring is in progress. We have, I'm going to say about half of the plywood subfloor system down, and they're going to be working on that for the next couple of weeks. In terms of the site work, besides Mazzicoli Way, we've also done final grading along the north side of the town hall. That's the side that's closest to Cedar Street. We've laid topsoil, and we will be getting ready for landscaping this week as well. Okay, so just looking on the horizon, again, 2 to 3 weeks out to give you an idea of what we're heading into in terms of work, really down to floor finishes at this point. The community center flooring is left to do. We're moving things out of the transition academy so that we can start vinyl flooring on the west side of the community center, starting in the transition academy and working our way down. The whiteboards actually are substantially complete at this point. The picture rail is left to do. We have some picture rail to install on the second floor of the town hall and the first floor of the grand hallway. FRP panels, that's a finished panel that's a washable surface for the commercial kitchen in Parks and Rec. We're getting our hands on that material, and we'll be starting the installation of that this week. The final flooring finishes basically throughout in the town hall. We're going to start with carpet on the 3rd floor of the town hall this week. It shipped out of Dalton, Georgia yesterday. So we do expect it to land by tomorrow, and we'll start working top down with the rest of the flooring finishes within the town hall. The food service equipment for the Parks and Rec kitchen, we are anticipating delivery of all the equipment at some point next week. I'm hoping for early next week we'll see that. We've contracted with a final cleaner, and he or she is basically going to be following the installation of the flooring. As flooring is completed and wall base is put on, we will start final cleaning all the spaces starting in the town hall on the 3rd floor. And again, we're hoping to line up final cleaners starting next week. Punch list, we've talked with the architect. I'm not sure if Chris is on the line, but we've talked with Chris from Quisenberry to get him started on punch list once we get through flooring finishes on the 3rd floor and work our way down. The fire alarm testing, that is scheduled in the next couple weeks. The preliminary air balancing, we're going to be working with an air balancer at some point next week to start air balancing, starting in the town hall. The final wearing surface, the final paving along Mazzicoli Way, that is slated for the week of the 22nd. We haven't dialed in the final date yet, but I know we've got time carved out the week of the 22nd to do that. The temporary bituminous walkway, when I issued this update, it was last week. It was at the end of the week last week. We ended up moving this ahead in the schedule. The temporary bituminous that runs along the west side of the community center and links up to the west entry of the town hall. All that work is now complete. The generator startup and load bank testing, that is scheduled for the week of the 22nd, possibly into the week of the 29th. The flagpoles, as much as we'd like to set the flagpoles, just due to the space constraints on that side of the building, because we're so close to the existing town hall and we're dealing with 30-foot flagpoles, we just don't have the space to do that. We're going to have to move this work off into phase 2. Once the existing town hall comes down, we're going to have to bring in a small crane to set these flagpoles. Other things that I want to mention on work to start that I didn't show here in the update I see, but I want to mention it to you guys. The gym equipment, that is scheduled to be on site towards the end of next week, I believe by the 18th, thereabouts. We're scheduled to see the basketball hoops and mats, the mat system. Other items related to the gym, the telescoping stands, those are ready to ship by the end of this week. We're obviously holding off until we can get a little bit further along with the wood flooring system. But I do anticipate bleachers at some point this month. And that's pretty much it on in terms of the updates relative to the schedule. Some other critical items, again, dealing with the COVID-19 situation has not gone away, as much as I wish it would just go away. Like a lot of you, I'm sure, want to. It's created some labor shortages, shall we say, specific to the elevator construction. We are aware of a couple employees that were here that were constructing the elevator that tested positive for COVID-19, and they have not been back since. I'm aware of one of the workers that continues to test positive for COVID, and we really don't have a lot of options here because it is a specialized piece of equipment. I can't simply reach out to another contractor to take on the work. So we've been keeping tabs with this vendor, and we're hoping that this individual tests negative very soon, in which case we could expect a crew back here by next week, and we still have a fighting chance of making the schedule and meeting the July 14th turnover. They're also looking at some other options. There really aren't many because it is a unionized workforce. They cannot pull labor from another union, let's say in another state. That's just not an option. That's not how it works, unfortunately. So they are looking to other companies potentially, if there's other resources that can be tapped into, they're looking at that option. I'm hoping in the next few days that I have a better update that I can report back to the project team to let them know. But at this point, that's the best update I can give you all. We're going to continue to, evaluate the schedule. Like I said, right now, if we can get a crew back here next week, that would still give us time to construct the elevator, basically through June, and then allow for testing and adjustments, which really won't take long. Inspection takes roughly a day. That would put us right after the 4th of July, roughly speaking. So that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. And then really it just comes down to expediting a good portion of the work specific to the community center and the gymnasium. Unfortunately, with the number of electrical changes, added a lot of time to the schedule that we're trying to, obviously not go beyond the original turnover date. So That said, that it may mean that we continue to work electricians on Saturdays to basically catch up on completion of wiring within the community center. And there's a tremendous amount of wiring within the gym to deal with all the gym equipment. So I have a couple COPs already carved out to expedite electrical. I suppose I could debate that they are true changes in scope of work that would add money to the GMP. But in the spirit of cooperation, I want to, work with the town, and I'm submitting those as part of our CM contingency, so there's no increase to the contract.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Minor has a question.
Sure.
Mr. Minor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quick, Frank, you said on the elevator that you were limited to who you reached out to. Is that something that if we got to the point that they were still unable to return as we start getting closer and closer to finish, that will not allow us to have a CO, correct?
Well, that's something that I've been sort of tinkering around with and having a discussion with, with our superintendent, and was looking to bring in the inspectors in the conversation to figure out if maybe we could get a TCO with the understanding that we would only have access to the first and second floor, because the floors are accessible from the outside on the first and second, and without needing an elevator. But I don't know if that's possible. That's something that obviously, as a last resort, we could look into that possibility. It would resequence the way we are anticipating to move people into the building. We were looking to move the Board of Ed first, but if that was the case, we'd be moving them last. But that's something that I wanted to dive further into and have a discussion with the inspectors to see what they thought.
Okay, and the second question I've got for you, Frank, is does Schindler have any liability not being able to meet their delivery date? If this threw the whole construction schedule out of whack, I would have to say that they would bear some type of responsibility for it, no?
Well, I don't know if, COVID-19 is something that they really don't have any control over. And
well, I understand that, but they do have a delivery schedule, and I find it incredibly difficult to believe that there's one employee in the state of Connecticut that is only able to task this, job. That if they don't have, bench depth, that's not our problem. That's their problem. And they need to figure it out. And if it means subbing out to somebody else, then maybe that's the alternative they have to solicit. But I don't think we should be, concerned about getting towards the end of the schedule and getting into a real problem where we can't deliver this or get a TCO, and now we're potentially backing the whole project up. That seems insane.
Yeah, again, they are looking at options. It's not as easy as them just tapping into somebody's labor pool to get the job done. Unfortunately, they can't reach out to another elevator contractor to do their work. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
The other
But
unfortunate
they
thing
can't
is
pull from anywhere else, Frank, from out of state, from the
they
standpoint
cannot-
of Schindler
they-
themselves.
the unions will not allow that. That was a knee-jerk reaction from myself. I asked the same question, but the unions will not allow that.
Even
And,
with the extenuating circumstances that they would potentially jeopardize the project, they are not willing to bend the rules a little bit to protect their own employees and their own union members.
that's correct.
Wow. Okay.
So the other thing is, because this is a tractionless, machine roomless elevator system, they don't have a ton of guys that are trained to install this type of elevator cab.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, before we get to the COPs, I just want to mention that I just wanted to report on the requisition for payment based on the work in place through the end of May. We've got $21,742,474.46 in place. That would exclude the retainage. That leaves roughly 7.8 million to finish. That's to get through not just the turnover of the building, but the rest of the project. So this does include phase 2 as well. And the current retainage that's being held on our contract, again, through the end of May is $989,385.56.
Frank, Joe Harpy, one quick question on the retainage.
Yeah,
On that 21,742,474 work in place through May, what percentage of the 989,385 retainage is related to that work?
well, it's really tied back to all the subs cost.
I guess what I'm saying is, going forward, are you calculating the full retainage is into the 7.8 million? But I would think some large percentage must be related to the 21 million. What I'm looking for is how much more has to be completed of that 21,742 work that we're holding back money to the trade on. Well, you can provide an answer later to the committee. I want to move the agenda along. Are there any other questions? Now, couple other things. On the generator, is the town been satisfied with the response from DTC at this point? Does anyone? Paul, if you're there, are your questions been answered at this point, or is that still up in the air?
Joe, this is Paul Boutot. No, our answers have not been provided by DDC on that last series of questions that we had.
All right. I'm wondering how much of a critical path obstruction that will become if the town doesn't have all of its feed information in terms of what's on the generator and what's off the generator. I know we did agree to add some things that Paul had concerns about. And I know we seem to be the dog chasing the bat around in a circle, but at some point, are we hoping that the test, Frank, will help resolve some of these issues?
yes, that is the hope, yes.
Thank you. I see Mr. Minor's hand is raised. Do you have a question, Mr. Minor?
No, Joe, that was just tying in exactly where you were going. When they do that test run on the generator, they'll be able to do their load testing, which will start to give you actuals to what we're actually using.
Okay, and the other question I had, I'm sorry about that phone. The other question that I had was the lay-down space that's being utilized by the elevator people seems pretty pervasive in the building. When you walked me through I think it was the council chambers. And I wonder if they're not going to get this work done in a timely fashion, can they find another place for all this lay down? Because if your compromise is to be able to get portions of departments into the building while we're waiting for them to come back, it seems to me that we have an inventory issue with respect to the stuff that's all over the place.
No, it's not an issue, Joe.
I'm not criticizing Downs on this. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that they seem to be dominating a large laydown space within the building.
Yeah, well, they did come in, a few weeks ago to lay everything out, and at the time, they were just going to continue with the work. So in terms of the sequence, it wasn't going to create a problem. But since they haven't been back, obviously, we need to find another home for their components, which we'll do if we have to.
Okay, well, I think Mr. Minor's point, at the very least, they should be responsible for finding an area for their laydown if they're not sending anybody in to do the work. I mean, we
I
all
agree.
want to be good Christians and be kind to this thing, given their circumstance, but at the end of the day, business prevails, does it not? Good business. Okay, go ahead, Frank.
Okay.
Claffey has a question.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Claffey.
My question goes back to the generator satisfaction requirements in regards to Paul. This question, maybe Paul, you can answer a little more in depth, seems we jumped over it. But outside of the load, I remember there were a lot more issues that were supposed to be resolved between the parties and Paul's department outside of just running a load test. Has anything been addressed, or are we waiting to the load test to try to figure out if it's right or wrong?
This is Paul Boutat, Anthony. We asked specific pointed questions regarding what was in the building, not to include anything that we're bringing across, to get a understanding of how big of a generator would be required to run everything, all outlets in the building, with only the items that are being put in as a new building, not bring any customer information. And we have not been provided with any of that detailed information.
So, to the committee, do we think we need that information quicker than, sooner than later, or are we just going to wait and see?
We've made,
A&M or electrical or whomever, but I think Paul's got a great point. I would not want to wait till the end if he had pointed questions that need to be resolved.
the town has written to DTC several times, which is a commissioning agent for the architect, as you know.
Yep.
So it's a reach that we prefer not to make, but we were required to make.
Mm-hmm.
We have not gotten any information back from them to satisfy the town. And we're hopeful that running these tests will at least resolve some of the issues. So we'll have a better standing if we can capture some of the answers through the tests that we run. And then we'll go from there.
But on paper, Mr. Chairman, there should be some calculations on paper that help Paul in.
There are calculations that go back to when David Langdon was here, October of 2018. And there's some information in there that was not properly provided by the former facilities manager in terms of outlets, for example. And then he didn't respond to DCC specific to those outlets, but Dave's no longer here, and
But
we're not going to keep.
Chairman, what I'm asking is there's no way that we can get these answers that outside of just running the machine?
We have made every effort.
Calculations that can help Paul out to understand.
Mr. Arcari had DTC come in several months ago, one of their partners, and he provided answers he felt was satisfactory.
Okay.
And that's all he's willing to provide at this point.
Okay.
So that's where we are with it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, can you move on then, Frank, please?
Yes. All right, so we'll jump into the COP for review and vote this evening. Got 14 COPs here, starting with COP 199. Has to do with 4 diffusers and grills specific to the vault. This was something that was on the drawings noted by the owner. Essentially a piece of unbought scope. So it's a CM contingency item, $0 increase to the GMP. The next one is COP 200, a similar item where we have a continuous soffit vent with very limited detail. There was nothing more than some notes on the drawing. And this was a piece of unbought scope coming out of CM contingency, $0 increase to the GMP. COP 210 has to do with lighting, accommodating lighting at the flagpoles along the west entry. The cost here is to essentially install a galvanized pipe support system on top of the canopy of the west entry to support 2 light fixtures that will get tied into a photo cell so that those lights come on and they operate from dusk till dawn. The total cost associated with COP 210 is $9,410.83. COP 212 is to accommodate the amount of additional wiring in the gym. We've had to enlarge the switches to deal with the gym equipment wiring, totals $936. COP 215, that is to provide a mini split cable or interconnect cable between each split system, which is the cooling system that operates cooling within each data room. That is a contingency item out of CM contingency, $0 increase to the GMP. COP 219 is to put in a drop ceiling in lieu of a hard ceiling at each of the entryways. There's 3 separate entryways going into the council chambers. That totals $809.95. COP 220, that is to reconfigure the acoustical ceiling grid in that space to extend it all the way to the perimeter of the room. That's in lieu of the original design, and to add 6 light fixtures within the multi-purpose rooms. That totals $1,263.83. COP 221 is to procure and install the picture rail. It says second floor, but it's also the first floor as well. There's over 70 feet of it. Again, this is an unbought scope out of CM contingency for $0 increase to the GMP. COP 222, a similar item dealing with the FRP panels within the Parks and Rec kitchen. CM contingency item, $0 increase to the GMP. 223 is to deal with the COVID-19 and the precautionary measures that we've taken. This is to extend those precautionary measures basically through the end of the month. I believe the 26th would be the last day. At that point, we would still try to maintain social distancing as much as possible within the building. We would still require subcontractors to wear a mask, but the sanitizing and so forth would basically phase out, especially as trades ramp down. We do expect trades to ramp down towards the end of the month. Really wouldn't need to keep or maintain the same amount of measures that we've been taking. 224 is the temp heat for the community center. Unfortunately, the weather-wise, in May, the weather wasn't too kind. If you guys recall, we gave money back thinking that we were out of the cold, but we did have some pretty cold nights in early May. We had to rent a small unit to heat the community center to get through that period. It is a CM contingency item, so there's no increase to the GMP to process that. COP 227 is to add standby power. Room 2114 is the room where the card readers go back to. Essentially, the security wiring goes back to. So we want to keep that on standby. That totals $1,371.60. And then 231, as I mentioned before, this is to expedite some of the wiring and terminations within the community center. This is working the electricians on a Saturday, a CM contingency item, so $0 increase to the GMP. And then the last one is to extend the sidewalk out to Garfield. We had presented this back in February, and this has come back to us. And so we are representing this COP, $41,998.10, essentially adding a sidewalk from the east side of the town hall entry, extending all the way down past the gymnasium and connecting to Garfield Street. So all the COPs combined total $55,790.31.
Mr. Minor, did you have a question?
Yeah, just 2 real quick, if you don't mind. Thank you, Mr. Chair. On COP 210, Frank, was there no lighting that was spec'd on it on the original drawings?
That is correct.
Okay, and Mark, I'm sure you're there somewhere, and I'm going to ask, and I hope you're going to come up with the same answer, is that it is on the list. Okay, thank you. And on the second one, on 235, Is there a reason why this has come back again? The last I thought we had been told is they were going to try to roll this into the Garfield road improvements that were scheduled for the completion of this project and incorporate that in as part of the sidewalk accessibility and bike friendly accessibility that we had gotten grant money on. Do you know anything about that, either Joe or Jeff?
Yeah, I received a communication from the town manager, and he requested that we take it back in under our umbrella and complete it while we're doing the project. There's a lot of regrading involved in it. It's a very tight fit situation. And there were a lot of technical aspects. I'm not sure they concerned him specifically, the town manager. He didn't really say, but he did request that for the best economy of scales, it would be preferable we would take it back in. And I thought it appropriate, since we had looked at it once, to honor his request.
Right. And my only concern to it is, Joe, and you know this as much as I do, is we've been really trying to constrain our budget as much as possible.
Right.
And this particular line item was not on the approved referendum as it was initially presented.
Right.
It's an issue that arose after the right-of-way adjustments required for the second 824 referral is where this came up. And, rightfully so, I think the sidewalk does belong on that side. It's just a question of whether or not it really belonged in the project or out of the project.
Right.
Just trying to be true to our
No, I
trying to
agree.
deliver this on budget as close as possible. Just every change order is a little frustrating.
I
But
wasn't, an advocate of it myself, but I think part of the concern the town manager had, and again, he didn't say this to me, but just kind of thinking it all through, we remain in violation of the 824 on the revised property line. They were specific what they recommended. They had two of them, but they were very specific to the extension of the sidewalk as part of granting the revised property line situation. I mean, we can argue it's a civil war,
right.
on the same land, but they were pretty specific, and we're going to hold the line on that requirement. So the question was, how long do you stay inconsistent with it? It was a matter of public discussion at one particular time. So that's why I think part of his thinking as well, to move forward and have us take care of it.
All right, that's fine.
But I agree, I'm sensitive as you are as well to the increase in the money. Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
I can't see who else has got their hand up for public participation.
Yeah, the only frustration of this, Joe, is just in the standpoint that the concrete contractor just demobilized off of doing all the pours coming off of the east side of the building. And now obviously it's going to be more expensive to remobilize them again.
Yep.
After finish work has been complete. That's my only frustration. I just wish we had it before and just left it.
Yeah, I share the same frustration. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Downs does too.
Thank you.
Joe, question?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Claffey has his hand up, and then Mr. Mortensen.
Mr. Claffey.
My question is for Colliers, and he's probably got this on his radar, but COP 227, I know it's only $1,300, but one would think that standby power for the security system would have been something that's not left off.
Well, that is open for discussion. I have it as an owner request right now, not knowing what was in the pre-construction. We can.
I mean, I would like to be something that we watch, because I'm just thinking, I didn't know what 2114 was until today. So I know, as I said, Mark, I know it's only just shy of $1,400, but when we're trying to offset the $42,000 sidewalk.
Understood.
Okay. If you could just, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Mark, this is Paul Boutat. Just to speak to that, during the initial design phase, all rooms that were identified as data on all the tech drawings we were told by Warren after discussions with the DTC rep that those would be provided with standby power. That room was tagged as a room identified as data, which was always known to be the ACS or the closet that would be handling the door access control components, and that was overlooked. In my opinion, it was overlooked.
Okay.
One issue, Anthony, as you know, this project is being constructed for the most part under addendum. We've had a number of documents where the drawings weren't completed. But yet language spoke to having a certain element in a room, and it wasn't there. And that's been more frequent, unfortunately, than not, but Downs and all of us have done a great job, I think, in mitigating those as we've run through it.
I agree. I just, don't want.
Oh, I agree. Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Good point. Mr. Mortensen.
Yes, Joe, a question for Frank. I can't tell on the Quisenberry's layout plan, how close does that sidewalk come to the south corner of the bump out in the community center? It looks like it's literally intersected with it on the plan. I don't know how accurate this is.
Touch it.
Frank, you want to address that?
Yeah, I mean, it actually connects. I believe it's going to connect with the at the top of the stairs at the gymnasium at that southeast corner. It actually
Next to the stairway?
yeah, next to the stairway. It actually connects there. As
Okay.
far as how many feet it is off of the bump out, yeah, I mean, it is pretty tight, as you can see there, but you probably have about maybe 5 or 6 feet.
Okay. I just wondered where they're gonna throw snow or you can throw it out in the street, and it just, like I said, it looks like it's right on top of, I know we changed and added the bump out. And this goes back to what Joe was saying, this is done by, we added and added and added, and maybe and obviously some of the things should have been put in, but
Yeah,
Nice
and
to have the
while
sidewalk.
we're still talking about the sidewalk, not to beat this up too much, but we do, I think I mentioned this in the schedule update, we're expecting the landscaper this week, and we're gonna start staking out for plantings. So we're gonna have to take a closer look at that specific location, because I think it's gonna be so tight there that it won't make sense to put some of those trees in anymore.
it looks it from the plan here, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
So
Thanks.
at least that would be a savings.
yes.
We can, okay. You good, Rod?
yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the COP for review and approval? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the COPs as presented.
Second, Anthony Claffey.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimously. Okay, Frank.
Okay, just want to touch on the orders of magnitude that we're sort of working on, like I said, behind the scenes with subs, or just holding off to the side until we get through some scopes. As in the case of COP 34, we've got that general trade savings still hanging out there with a credit value of just over 20,000. And really, it's just a matter of getting through this last leg here of general trades packages, specifically the gym equipment and the telescoping stands and the signage. So hopefully, I would say by next month for sure, that we'll be able to reconcile this credit and give this money back to the town, hopefully in full. That's shown here. The next item has to do with some canopy blocking that was just some missed scope based on the packages that we had outlined for subcontractors. That's why it's a $0 increase to the GMP. COP 216, I think this has been on the list for a little while. We're basically waiting until we have furniture land. This is specific to the 3rd floor, the open office areas for the Board of Ed. Until we have a better understanding of where this furniture is going to finally reside up there, we'll know more on whether or not we need to extend power to some of these locations. but we have a rough order of magnitude on that of roughly $1,500. 225 is to add some more lighting essentially in front of the elevator on the 3rd floor. As you come off the elevator, you just don't have enough light level there, to put it bluntly. So we've got to add a couple lights, and there's some wiring that needs to be done for equipment to communicate with the final elevator system there. The War Memorial, we talked about relocating this to the west side of the town hall, which would be between the new town hall and the existing town hall right now. We're waiting for some drawings. I understand Quisenberry is working with the town on this to come up with a final location, but I think it will involve a concrete pad for the memorial to sit on. And then there's going to be some lighting, as I understand, to light this up at night. So we've just earmarked this right now. Until we get a design, though, I really can't comment on what the cost impact would be. COP 228 is to deal with these wood canopy supports specific to the Grand Hall, which is on the 1st floor. If you're standing in that big hallway, on either side you have these coiling grills, and you have a wood canopy that kind of hangs off the wall. This is to add supports at the ends of the canopy, at each one of these canopies. I believe there's 6 or 7 locations where this happens. And we're trying to work through a design right now to come up with something that's going to support the ends of the canopies and look aesthetically pleasing at the same time. COP 229 is to add cabinets, upper cabinets and lower cabinets and counter space within the new mail room, which is on the 2nd floor of the town hall. There's a rough order of magnitude placed on this, just over $6,000. 230 is some damage to an existing feeder that ran through the building. That's a CM contingency item. 232 is to deal with more wiring to make the hot water pumps operational. Again, this is something where we had a limited amount of power shown on the documents. This is to add power to operate all of the equipment. This is in the basement of the town hall. 233, similar circumstance where we have a range hood within the Transition Academy. There is no power for it, so that's to deal with this. I believe we can tap into one of the existing circuits, so we'll try to keep this cost down. And then 234, again, some more expediting over this past weekend, working in the community center to finish wiring, and then also expedite the amount of cabinets that are left to do in there. And we made some pretty good headway. We're down to basically the art room and getting the art room cabinetry done in the community center at this point. Some other items that have come up, because again, I send this update, and unfortunately the change process is very fluid, as is the schedule. So some other things that have popped up that I just want to share with you guys that aren't on the list. COP 236, because of the tile that was specified, and maybe Chris wants to comment, the tile that was specified in the Grand Hall, based on the size and format of that tile, it just wasn't going to work with how the joints laid out. So essentially we had to go out, we had to procure additional tile, larger format tile. So there's a cost associated with that. It's about $1,200. So I'm working to formalize that for the next meeting. COP 237 is to add power for VAV boxes within the community center. There's 4 boxes left that were not picked up as part of the revised electrical package. The rough order of magnitude there would be about 3,500. And within the elevator shaft, because of the restrictiveness of the elevator shaft, we're going to have to go out and get a retractable ladder. That's going to be a CM contingency item for $0 increase to the GMP. And lastly, within the entryways along the town hall on the east and west side, because we have roof drains that now have piping running on the outside of the building, we're going to have to make provisions for heat trace on those pipes to prevent any freezing. And that has just come in, and I need to review the scope and figure out what type of heat trace we're gonna go with to finalize pricing on that. So that's just to give you an overview of some of the other things that have popped up. In terms of rejected COPs, looking at the list here, there's really nothing new for us to talk about. I'm just looking over the list. This looks like all of it is old news. There's nothing new to report there. So if you guys don't have any other questions relative to COPs, I'll share some photos with you of our progress.
Mr. Minor, did you have another question?
Just real quick. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Frank, two things. One, just looking at our rejected COPs, is that an accurate adjustment of our sidewalk on waiting, not waiting, being 32,000 versus 42 or 43,000 now?
Yes.
Okay, just checking on that one. And the second one was the partitions. Have you had any updates in terms of their shipping, not shipping?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me, Chris. I did have some dates. To share with you on that. The panels themselves for the town hall now, we've got panels on we have a conference room on the second floor, and we have the council chambers on the first floor. Those panels are scheduled to ship the week of July 20th. And then we also have panel partitions for the community center within the multi-purpose rooms and the gymnasium. And those panels are scheduled to ship the week of August 17th.
Okay, so either one of those should not affect our ability to get a TCO or a CO, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we have the tracks installed. So everything, at the ceiling is finalized, and the panels can go in later. It doesn't affect any work that we have to do now.
Okay, appreciate it.
Are
Thanks,
there any other questions?
Yeah, Joe, just one question going back to Chris's comment on the sidewalk there.
Yes, Don.
Does a $10,000 increase sound right, Frank, for remobilization on a $32,000 going to $42,000?
There's no increase for any mobilization. It's really the equipment time, and obviously you're adding equipment time to redig that whole area that we wouldn't have had to do if this was approved and given to us when we presented it back in February. So there's about 12 hours between equipment time and the labor, and we went line by line with Gerber, and it seemed reasonable to us.
Okay,
Don,
doesn't seem
I
overly reasonable to me, but what do I know?
Don, I asked for a breakdown of how we got to the increase, and that
Yep.
was sent to me today, and I'll get that to each committee member.
All right, thanks.
It's on the specifics.
Councilor Bedrejko has a question, Mr. Harvey.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this was just kind of spurred by your discussion on COP 223. I'm glad to hear that for the construction phase of it, our COVID measures should be appropriate and there shouldn't be any more really expenses or problem. But I was just kind of wondering, several experts are predicting a resurgence in the fall and winter. And would that, and I know there's not as many contractors perhaps or subcontractors involved, but if there's a resurgence and more measures have to be reinstated, whatever, what kind of impact would you see, both in terms of any kind of timing issues or cost issues for the demolition phase?
I mean, without really knowing the full extent of what could happen, it's hard for me to comment, but if there is in fact a resurgence, kind of like what we've seen when this whole thing started back in March, to your point, we do have a limited amount of workers here. It's really just abatement and demo, and that's one trade contractor. So they're essentially, working alone. They're not working with other trades. The abatement is typically done under containment. They don't work with other trades, so I don't see an issue there. And the same thing with the demo. There's no other trades around that would be a reason for us to implement any sanitizing or anything like that. And then as far as the other improvements as part of phase 2, it's really just site improvements associated with the parking lot. And again, I don't see an issue there either.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Frank. Oh, is there another question?
I snuck back in on you, Joe, real quick. Mark and Frank, just to confirm, you're tracking the COVID expenses on a separate line item. I know, Frank, you've got them in on on the CM contingency, but I know, Mark, we had talked about this before, of tracking that line item specifically for potential reimbursement for all of that and be able to put it back into the CM, which would eventually come back to the town.
Correct. Right now, there are 2 line items on the contingency log, and they're identified as COVID.
That
Okay.
would be from FEMA?
Yes. Yeah, there is potential for up to 100% reimbursement on the expenses related specifically to COVID.
Good news. Good news with bad news, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Okay, Frank?
Yeah, looks like we have some time. So just real quick, I want to get through some of the progress photos with y'all.
Yep.
Take a look at those. I apologize for this first photo. It looks kind of grainy, but that's really a finished product of your new town hall, looking from Cedar Street, with the roof screen install now completed. And then just another angle on Cedar Street, sort of looking at the east entry. Go to the next photo, James. Oh, I think we skipped over one. So that's just the close-up now of the entryway along the east side. It's hard to see from this photo, but we do have some brick piers that have already been constructed that are on either side of that entryway. And then the white portion, that white band that you see at the top, that's all going to get an EFIS, which is like a cementitious product, and it will have the crown molding around the perimeter of the entryway as well, that sort of mimics the crown molding at the top or the roof level of the town hall itself. Okay, we can go to the next one now. And that's just a shot of Mazzacoli Way, Garfield Street being behind you looking on. That's the binder course. You can see the curbing is set. If you were to zoom in, you could probably see some of the light pole bases. You can see some of the topsoil is down in the background. There's a close-up of the south side of the community center. Again, these photos were taken last week, at the end of last week, so a lot of progress has been made, especially in this area. This is actually a concrete patio. We placed the rest of the concrete today. It's roughly a 15-foot wide by 115 feet long patio on this side of the building. And that was wrapped up today. All right, so now we're in the community center, and we're going to basically work our way towards the town hall. So now You're standing looking at the Parks and Rec administration area. Just beyond that, that opening there, you can see cabinets in the background. That's the kitchenette for the Parks and Rec department. Go to the next photo. And this is a shot of your gymnasium. You can see off in the distance, you've got pallets of material. That's the wood flooring. Again, this was taken on Friday, so at this point, a lot of the subfloor, the 2 layers of plywood, has already been laid in about half of the gymnasium. Okay, this is a shot still in the community center along the west side. This is a shot of the daycare. You can see the cubbies on the ground. Those have since been installed, and now we're just clearing out the room, getting ready for vinyl tile flooring. And this is a photo of the Transition Academy, finished cabinetry along the perimeter on the west side, west elevation of the Transition Academy. Just put those counters in last week. This is a shot of the Transition Academy bathroom. Got a little bit of tiling, as you can see, left to do on the floor. Plumbing fixtures are here. You can see the ceiling is up, somewhat tiled at this point. And that is another shot of the Transition Academy looking at the east wall. A lot of cabinetry in this room. It's all completed at this point. And this is a picture of the grand hallways looking towards the west entry. You can see the basket weave pattern or herringbone pattern, I believe it is, on the floor there. They're about more than halfway done with the porcelain tile flooring in this particular hallway. And that's looking the other way, still in the grand hall, looking towards the east. You can see the town seal in the background. It's on a glass panel. And this is a typical shot of the second floor corridor. You can see that we've got final paint on the wall. The flooring is complete. Doors are on. I think even in this photo, some of the wall base was going on. And now that work is complete. Really, all that's left to do here is pull up protection and start cleaning the floor and wiping everything down. This is the second floor conference room. I had mentioned earlier, this is one of the rooms that gets operable partitions. You can see we've got finished surfaces here. Carpet is down, base is on. You can see the whiteboard in the background. I know that Paul is even working with an AV vendor, and I believe there's brackets on the wall already for monitors. And this is a typical shot of a bathroom. All of the toilet partitions are now complete. Most of the toilet accessories, the grab bars and mirrors, are all installed in every bathroom throughout the project. And this is the third floor shot of the lobby. As you come off the elevator, you can see through that entryway just to the left, going through those doors to your left is where the elevator is going to go. And then just around that entire space is just open office area. So really, like I was touching on before, we're just waiting for carpet to come in so we can finish this off, but it's been final painted. We have device covers on, all the ceiling tile is in. We'll proceed with carpet, then we'll look to start final cleaning next week, and we'll start the final air balancing as well. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Does Chris and Barry Arquette have any comment this evening? Are they there? Are you here, Chris? You can't hear him if he was, but
Unmute, Chris.
He has raised his hand.
Chris?
Joe, yep, can you hear me?
Yeah, do you have anything you'd like to touch base on for us?
Nothing further, no.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Harpy, Mr. Minor has his hand raised.
Mr. Minor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, for Chris, and this actually might be a Chris Frank combination question. On the original scope, when we were in and out with the roof screenings, was there anything ever in terms of screenings on the bridge roof between the town hall proper and the field house? And the second would be the lower roof on the community center entrance on the south side of the building. Do you remember seeing anything, either of you?
Yeah, Chris, I don't recall ever seeing anything like that. But again, I haven't been involved in the project the entire time. I sort of came on board as we got into the construction phase of the project, but I did a little bit of research on that. I couldn't find anything. So unless Chris has something that he can offer on it, I didn't see anything.
Okay.
Frank, I agree. Yeah, there wasn't anything that I could dig up either during design that had anything in that kind of bridge roof.
All right, because one being more aesthetic, and maybe at the end of this, if there's anything left, it might be a consideration because it's at eye level when you're at the library parking lot because you're above grade. And the second being a safety concern I have, and I don't know if you could speak to it, Frank, but I think the elevation off the southeast corner has got to be pretty close to about 8 feet, to the point where you could probably jump up on that roof pretty easy with no screening, no protection to stop anybody from doing that.
To jump onto the roof from the east side?
Yep, southeast corner of the community center, which would be the awning, that awning section or the lower section below the field house. If you look at it right at the top of the stairwell, right on that corner, I'll bet you it's only 8 feet or so, maybe 10 at the most, to be able to get up onto that roof. Take a look at it the next time you're there. That's just the only thing outside of the aesthetics. And again, there's rooftop equipment up there that aesthetically is not, overly appealing, but it is what it is. But just as we start to get closing out here, to take a look at that when we're just about done, to make sure it's not a problem.
I'll get a running start from Garfield. I'll let you know how I do.
Yeah, I can tell you one of the schools we've got over on Superior Avenue is a regular police call of the kids jumping up on the roof there for a similar issue where they've got very low access to be able to get up.
Well, I hope none of them are watching this broadcast, because now they...
Joe, Rod Mortensen, question?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mortensen.
Chris, just to your point, I can't tell you what meeting it was, but I remember we had a specific conversation where the question was asked when we were discussing screening on the main on the town hall. And the question was asked, well, is there screening for the two areas you just talked about? And the answer was no, there wasn't. But I 100% agree with you, because the first thing that stuck in my mind when I was standing over at the library, I always try to, the kind of business I'm in, I always look at things like I'm the customer. And as opposed to the west side of the building where you're probably pulling up in a car, et cetera, if you're coming out of the library or going in or on the steps or walking down, that without screening on those two particular points, it looks awful. And I didn't want to bring it up because I'm not trying to knock the project at all, but just as important as the screening is on the main part of the building, on the community center and on that roof, I mean, it's something you wouldn't do in your own business at your house. And I 100% agree with you. If there is money and it is possible without wrecking everything, those have to have some kind of screening, because it's one of those things somebody's going to look at and say, who forgot that? But we did mention it. It was answered. And we had no discussion on it. No, there was no screening, because I particularly remember that because I brought up the question about, I didn't know if some of the screening on the main part of the building, I wasn't really familiar with the elevations and what you'd actually be able to see. So somebody driving by down Cedar Street is a different point of view than somebody standing at the library looking at our new town hall and having that stuff stick out. I 100% agree with you. See where we're at the end.
Yeah, I think the advantage is on the bridge roof between the town hall proper and the field house, we would only have to worry about screening two sides of it.
Yep.
And then on the lower roof, which I'm going to call the southern, canopy roof, is something that, you're basically only having to cover three sides of it. I would, I don't think there's necessary to pursue anything for the field house roof, because I know there was some speculation that would be a perfect opportunity pursuing solar for that. But by its elevation, it doesn't stand out anywhere near as prominently as it does. And I've had the same views that you have, Rod, in terms of pulling into the library parking lot with a raised elevation, and that just smacks you in the face that it just, okay, what, we run short on money on that?
Yeah.
And it just, I think if we can, that's something we should look at towards the end.
Absolutely.
Is there any possible way, either Chris or Frank, that we could do a rough order of magnitude just to kind of get an idea of what it might look like in terms of a cost? Is that possible, Joe?
Well, I got to be honest with you, at this point in the project, we don't have any additional monies that I can see in my calculations, even with some breakage.
Right. Even if we just got a rough order of magnitude on it, though, just to see what it might look like. I don't want to pursue anything.
I don't want to pay for the rough order of magnitude at this point till we get the project delivered and home. Then I think it would make good sense.
Okay. Because I recall the roof screening project conversation, and I was under the impression that it was covering all the screenings. And I do recall exactly what Rod's referring to now, but I just, we'll worry about it when we get there.
I think there were bigger fish to haul in
Yep.
at the time, in fairness to the committee. And I also think that, well, I know for a fact the screening that we have was an ad alternate.
Yep.
Because of a number of situations. So it wasn't, when you're building the thing, it wasn't a top priority. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just saying it wasn't a high priority.
Yeah.
But something I think the town could look at post-construction if they want to do something that's feasible.
Yeah, I know I've seen something as simple as just vinyl, almost like a vinyl fencing is really what it comes down to, that looks pretty similar to that in commercial construction. So we'll worry about that when we get there.
Okay, all right.
Chairman,
Yes,
Mr. Claffey has his hand raised.
yes, Mr. Claffey.
I just wanted to clarify on that we 3 or 4 people have said it's on the committee, has said that we discussed it at length on coverages, parapets. And I remember maybe what's it 2020 now, it was back in 17 or even in 16 when we were sitting at the table, we talked about the ad alternate of all these parapets to cover exactly what we're looking at now that's not covered. So, I mean, for some to sit there and say, not on the committee, that they never talked about it, maybe those specific people that weren't there, but I distinctly recall the architect bringing up the point that, yeah, we'll go talk to you about it. So I want to be clear that it was discussed at length many years ago.
Okay, well, as I say, post-construction, we can look at things if the town has the finances and willingness to do it. All right, moving right along, consider to take action on fund transfers. Mr. Barron, does such a thing exist this evening?
Yes, be looking for a transfer from the contingency account, the owner's contingency account, to the construction account for the amount of the COPs that you approved this evening, which is the $55,790.31. And that would be coming from account 3110-9912, which is the owner's contingency, and going into 3110-9911, which is construction.
Okay, Mr. Mortensen, would you make that motion, please?
I would like to move that we, if I could barely hear Jeff, move the 55,790.31 from 311099912 to 3110999. I didn't hear the last two digits.
911, right.
Okay. Is there a
Second,
to the motion?
second.
Got it.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
so passed unanimously.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other business pertinent to the committee?
You wish to meet again in 2 weeks
It's fine
for
with
your
me.
regularly scheduled meeting on June 24th.
How does that go with everyone?
Fine.
That works for Downs.
Okay. Public participation. Any individual in the queue wishing to participate in public participation, please state your name and address. James?
At this point, we have Barbara. Let me see if I can get her to talk, or if it still gives me the same, it's still giving me the same issue.
Okay,
I did send her a phone number if she wants to call in separately for us.
okay, whatever you feel. Yeah.
Barbara, call my number, 860-665-8550, and I'll put you on the microphone.
Barbara, a little while to do that, please. Did she say she would, James, or you didn't get any feedback?
Well, she does have her hand raised, which means she does wish to speak. So I gave her the option to give a call in, and I can put it onto the microphone for here.
Thank you. We'll give her another 30 seconds, James, then we're
All right.
gonna move on, my friend.
Barbara, you can use my cell phone or my office phone. I know you've got my cell because you've texted, or you can call the office, 860-665-8550. She just called, I believe, but she just changed the number. In 1 moment.
Joe, I just got one more thing for Frank. If we're gonna,
Are you there, Barbara?
Hold on 1 second, Barbara.
I can hardly hear you, Barbara.
Okay, go ahead. Darn it.
oh, I will be so happy to be done with these virtual meetings.
Can she email us a question or a comment, or no? She can do it anyway afterwards, but
Your number's still busy.
Joe, could I just get one more question for Frank while we're waiting for Barbara?
as long as it's quick, because I don't want to cut her off. Go ahead.
No, I'll cut it off if she comes on. Frank, did you get resolutions in terms of the tree plantings? I know there were some concerns on the utilities on the north side of the building and some concerns about block visibility on the south side of the building. Did you get resolution on all that?
No, but I'm hoping tomorrow when the landscaper shows up and we stake out the plantings that we flush this out while we're staking out locations.
Okay.
And I've asked Chris or somebody from Chris's team, Chris from Quisenberry, that that they come out and take a look at this with us. And I've also welcomed the town to join us in case they have any concerns. But certainly, like I mentioned before, with the addition of the sidewalk going to Garfield, there's going to be some plantings that are affected by that. And
that's on the east side, correct?
That's on the east side, and then on the
field house.
Yeah, and then on the south side, of the project, you got a number of trees there that just seem like it's so congested in that area.
I do have her now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Okay, we'll shut up.
Hi, this is Barbara Squillico at 275 Field Street. Can you hear me?
Yes, Barbara, go ahead, please.
Okay. I appreciate the fact that you were trying to get me on. I was just listening to the meeting, but I do have something to ask. I know at the last meeting there was something about the fiber optic loop.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear anything mentioned about that.
Okay, Frank.
We took action on that, Joe.
Yeah, Frank, would you give Barbara a review of what we're doing with the fiber loop?
Yeah, so we have essentially a fiber optic cabling system that's going to run underground, essentially around the entire site. It's actually, the work is actually broken up into 3 pieces. We priced all 3 pieces together, and the work was approved. My understanding is the funding the funding of the work is from CIP funds, and we have already installed the first leg of the fiber loop. It's almost complete. I believe we have 1 vault structure to set as part of this initial phase, which will be located on the south side of the community center. And then the other 2 legs of this fiber loop will be basically put on hold until we get into the next phase of the project.
Does that give you the information you were looking for, Barbara?
Yeah, yes, it did. The only thing that I wanted to ask is, I think they mentioned that the building needed to come down first because they were running that fiber optic cable from the library through the town hall to the back to the police station.
Frank, how are you balancing that against the demo?
Well, the first leg of this project actually was the fiber loop from the police station to the library. That work was one of the first orders of business that we had on the job. These other phases, though, are really more concentrated along the south side of the project, closer to Garfield Street.
So the demo isn't a consideration on that phase?
Well,
It would be post demo.
Yeah, right. It would be post demo, correct.
So
Barbara, we would be doing it after we occupy the building and after we take down the existing structure.
Okay, and the pricing still stays the same, the 195, 637?
Yes. That's coming from CIP funds, not out of the bond issue.
Okay.
Council.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
That's been a multi-year program for the town council to complete that task. So thank you for calling in. Any other members of the public, James, in the queue for public participation?
Nobody else is left in there, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any other business pertinent to the committee?
I have nothing.
Okay. Let me just say a couple of things. I think, given some of the challenges of this project, again, the committee in town and Downs and Chris O'Neill have risen to the requirements of those challenges, I think, in good faith and with a sense of a lot of accomplishment. I look to tour the facility, or I do tour the facility as often as I can on a fairly consistent basis. I'm in there at least 3 times a month. And you can see that what we talk about and what's represented to us is honest and candid and nothing else that they wouldn't expect of themselves, and nothing less than we would expect of them. And it's good to note that the only really critical path, the only possible bloody nose the project could get from getting into the new building based on the schedule that we presently have, is the elevator system. And I think if you look at all the various things that we've had to do in that building, including the community center and all the departments, the multiple departments that are going into that building that we're all aware from, the Board of Ed to the town's various departments, I think it's a task well accomplished and one that you can all take pride in. Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Hey, Joe, this is Frank again from Downs. I just want to point out one thing. If I heard Barbara correctly, I think she thought the fiber loop was approved at roughly 195,000, and we had adjusted the cost of that work to come down to 176,556.88, and that was mainly due to the fact that we were able to get a good chunk of the first part of this leg done prior to setting the binder course in Mazzicoli Way.
Okay, thank you for correcting that because I misled her on that myself. Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second,
Second, Don Woods.
all those in favor, please.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. We stand adjourned.
Good night.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.